How are we doing today? So today's seminar webinar is going to be about fixing your slice. One of the most frustrating things on earth as a golfer is when that ball starts going so far right that it's out of play, it's in the water, or maybe just it stays in play but it just doesn't go anywhere. It's not fun to look at, doesn't feel good. A lot of us really struggle with that. So today we're going to talk about some causes to your slice and some ways that you can work on improving that. So things we're going to look at today and cover today are going to be the types of slices. There are multiple different kinds of slices, so we want to be able to identify what our slice is. To identify that, we're going to need to know things like our swing path, our face angle, the relationship between those two, the relationship that ball position is going to have on our slice. And then also, as we go forward, we get onto the course, how do we actually aim this thing to keep it in play? And then what are some general tips that can help you to fix your slice? So, we don't need a TrackMan or a fancy launch monitor simulator to hit on. However, it can definitely help to give you some of these numbers like swing path, face angle, face to path, and that can help you to validate what you think is going on. So the types of slices. This graphic here is going to show several different kinds. It's also going to show some different hook, pull, hook, draw. We won't worry about this left side here. What we're looking at are going to be some various different things related to fade, push, push slice, stuff like that. Because when we really break it down, we see multiple different ways that that ball can go right. One that we're not quite seeing on here is going to be starts left and goes right. And then what we do see a lot of here is starts right and goes right. So mainly two ways that we're going to see a slice when we actually see it is it starts left and then goes right, or it starts right and then continues going to the right. So kind of thinking what kinds of things can really cause that. First thing we really need to be aware of and look at is going to be our swing path. So this little graphic here is going to show a swing path. Basically, if we can come into impact 6 to 12 through here, that's going to be a neutral swing path, which we would see on like a TrackMan as 0.0 would be neutral swing path. We can also have swing paths that are out to the right, for example, this 1 and 7, or swing paths to the left, like this 5 and 11 over here. We aren't really going to see swing paths that are out in 2, 3, 4, that range. That would be pretty crazy. So for the most part, we're going to see swing paths that are in this range here. The number representation, as I mentioned, neutral, if we saw it on TrackMan, would be like 0.0. Anything positive number is going to be a swing path to the right on TrackMan. Anything negative number is going to be a swing path to the left. So if you see a swing path of 3.0, that's 3 degrees to the right. If you see one minus 3.0, 3 degrees to the left. And a slice can occur no matter what path we're on, right? We can have a 0.0 and still slice the ball. We can have a 7 and 1, still slice the ball. We can have 11 and 5, still slice the ball. So it can happen multiple different ways. As we just talked about, there's different kinds of slices. So we just need to be aware that it can happen any possible way. So, to say that we should try to get from a swing path that goes to the right to a neutral swing path and that'll fix it, or a swing path that goes to the right and let's get to the left, that'll fix it. Not necessarily true. There's way more that goes into it than just altering swing path, but it does play a role. Something that also is going to play a role is going to be our ball position. Ball position is going to affect our swing path, and we'll talk about ball position in a little bit. But ball position is going to affect our swing path, and we'll, as we progress through this and talk about it a little bit more, we'll come back to this example and use this. If we presume that this line is middle of the stance, and this yellow line is going to be our club's path, really no matter what swing we're making. If the ball position moves up in our stance, it's going to be more here. If it moves back in our stance, it's going to be more here. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. A big impact as well that we're going to have outside of ball position is going to be the face angle. That's going to have a big impact on your slice and the direction and curve of your golf ball relative to your swing path. So face angles, 3 face angles that we've got are going to be square, closed, and open. Open, closed, square. All represented here if we presume that this line pointing straight ahead is going to be pointing directly at our target. We can see if we square the face up to that we've now got a square club face. If we close the face relative to that, it's a closed face. If the face is going to look here, it's going to be an open club face. Generally speaking, the ball is going to start wherever that face is pointing at impact. So if the club face is square at impact, the ball is going to start along that target line that the face is square to. If it's closed to that path, it's going to start left of it. If it's open to that path, it's going to typically start to the right of that. With some of that being said, there are some implications on our face to path as well that are going to dictate that. So as far as like looking at metrics on something like a TrackMan, square is going to be 0.0, closed is going to have a negative metric and open positive metric, face point to the right, face point to the left. So just keep that in mind, because when we think about a swing path to the right, that's going to show as a positive number, and that's going to show as a face angle. Positive number is going to show open face, whereas the other side, a swing path to the left is going to show a negative number. A club face pointing to the left is also going to show a negative number. Okay, and ball position once again affects face angle similarly to the way that it affects swing path relative to impact. So face to path, these have a relationship that's going to dictate these 9 basic shot shapes that we can have, which are going to be as represented by red lines here, the various poles or path starting to the left. So we can hit one just a straight pull. We can hit a pull draw. We can also hit a pull fade or pull slice. We can start things right down the line, hit it dead straight. We can hit it straight with a draw, hit straight with a fade, or a hook and a slice, depending on some face angles. And then over here, similar stuff. We can go push, draw, push, push, fade. So that curve is going to be dictated by the relationship of swing to path. So if we have a swing path out to the right and a club face that is closed relative to that path, that's where we're going to see this draw or possibly a hook. If we have a swing path that is left with an open face, that's where we're going to start to see like C here, where it's a pull fade, which can become a pull slice. And what's going to make this a pull slice versus a pull fade is going to be the degree to which that face is open relative to the path. So if we have a path that is 3 degrees left, and we have a face that is 3 degrees open, that's going to be this one here, right? Those would equal 0. So it would be left, but we wouldn't have crazy movement on the golf ball. Whereas if we have that same 3-degree left path, but let's say we have a 6-degree open face, that's where we're going to see this ball start tailing off to the right. Similar stuff is going to apply here. If we are neutral with open face, it's going right. If we're right with an open face, it's going right. A lot of folks generally fall into this blue line or red line category here. So for the folks that are going to fall more to the blue side, so the ball starts right, goes right. Obviously, one way to check that is when you hit the ball, is it starting right of where you want and continuing to go right, or is it starting left of where you want and then coming back to the right? Also, a good way to look at this is going to be, are you someone who slices the ball but also has a problem with the ball hooking? If you do, path is probably out to the right and that face angle is probably inconsistent, going all over the place. Similarly, if you're someone who aimed it left and it just stayed straight, that's probably because your swing path was left, but your face relative to path was square to that path, or possibly even left of it if you hit a little pull with it. So things to keep in mind, right, are going to be these directions of the golf ball are going to be affected by the face's relationship to the swing path. So to summarize that, if your swing path is to the left and your club face is open to a higher degree than your swing path, the ball is going to start left and go right. If your swing path is to the right and your face angle is also to the right by any degree, ball's going to go to the right. So now that we know what gets the golf ball to move, the different kinds of slices, we're aware of our swing path, our face angle, and our face to path. Something to really keep in mind and be aware of is going to be our ball position. So this graphic here is going to show, that chart that we've all seen a million times of with each club, kind of where that ball position theoretically should be. Now, something to keep in mind here, and I'll go to the other graphic, the swing path graphic as well, so we can get a representation from there. Is the further left or the further forward up in your stance, if you're a right-handed golfer, the further towards over here by the driver 3-iron area, or if you're left-handed, that would be towards the right foot. The more forward in your stance that you have the golf ball, the more left the path has the potential to be. Also, the more closed the club face has the potential to be. Just keep that in mind. If the ball is forward, the path will be potentially more left. The club face potentially will be left as well. The more back in your stance, so towards the right foot as a right-handed golfer or towards the left foot as a left-handed golfer, that's going to create a path that goes more to the right. And it's going to have the potential for a more open face. Okay, so let's go back to our swing path graphic here. So as I mentioned, let's call this middle of the stance. This is all the way forward driver. This is all the way back right foot, right? So if I have the ball further up in my stance, you can see that based off of this yellow line, this arc, that my club is going to pass through what would be on what would be a neutral swing path by impacting right here where these lines match up. I'm now going to be making impact with that ball further up in my stance up here where there's this little bit more deviation. So if this is 0 swing path and where these intersect is 0 swing path, this is going to be a left swing path. Similarly, if the ball is further back in my stance, we can see that this is now a right swing path. If the ball is back in my stance and we contact the ball, the path will be more to the right. Obviously, it's an athletic move. There's a chance that we manipulate this a little bit and that we can, through our stance, grip, setup, all kinds of things, and through athleticism, we can kind of manipulate this stuff a touch. But generally speaking, this is what's going to come into play with ball position. So ball position's up in the stance. It's going to be here. It's back in the stance. It's going to be here. Forward stance has a potential for more left swing path. Back stance has a potential for more right swing path. Now, what can happen with all of this? If we think about the club and the face and how it goes into the golf ball. So as it's coming into impact, the club face is typically a little bit open. We have to properly release the club head so that it squares at impact and then releases and closes after and beyond impact. If we think about this same example here, and let's say we move that, and let's say, so right here with the driver, it's all middle of stance, we get a 0.0 swing path, a 0.0 face angle. If we take that same swing and all we do is move this ball up in our stance, what's going to happen with that exact same swing is that swing path is now going to go left, and the club face is going to also be left or closed. So that would be a ball that would be a pull or a pull draw, pull hook kind of thing. Whereas if we have that ball now back in our stance, we're assuming the same swing, that path is going to be right. The club face, because it has not had that time to get to here and be at that 0.0, that club face now has the potential to be open and out to the right. So that's why just moving ball position is not going to magically fix your slice. By just moving that ball up in the stance, we have an opportunity to change the flight of the ball, or to move it further back in our stance, we have an opportunity to change the flight of the ball. However, because we're now manipulating where it is in our stance, that is going to affect our face angle. So if it's further back in the stance, we may have to have a sensation or develop the ability to release the club a little bit earlier. Same thing where it's further up in the stance, we may have to now develop the ability and skill to delay the release of the club head. So this stuff takes a bit more timing to dial in. That's why we see a lot of inconsistency at the amateur level, especially if something like ball position is not dialed in. If that ball position is kind of random every time, it's a little bit forward, it's a little bit back, you don't quite know, it's going to make controlling your ball flight far more difficult. So we need to know some things. So as we bounce forward here, when we start talking about things like start line and aim. So we've talked about the effects that all of this stuff has. So by now, you should start to have an idea of what kind of slicer you are, what factors are contributing to your slice, what are some potential areas that can help improve your slice. You should have a good idea of that, things relative to swing path, face angle, and ball position. So now let's say we go on the course, and we need to make sure that we aim the ball properly to get it in play, either with a slice or without it. Because I know if you're watching this video, you've probably said this before, whenever I aim left, it goes straight. If we think about the example that we just did with the swing path and that graphic of the spray paint on the ground, and we see that ball position up in the stance is going to promote a left path, but also potentially a left club face. What can often happen for an amateur golfer is when you are aiming more left, what's happening as you do that is that ball may actually be moving up in your stance without you realizing it. You're turning your body, but you're also adjusting your start line. And this is also going to affect where that ball position is relative to your stance. So what may have been a more neutral, not quite as far up position with the golf ball may now actually, in reality, be moving further up in your stance, which is now causing your club face to square or close a little bit, and that's where it's going straight or even left when you think you're aiming left and it's just not coming back to the right. So keep that in mind. When we get a hole, so this, for example, this hole right here, hole number 18 at Pebble Beach, pretty famous hole. It's a par 5, tree in the middle of the fairway, water all along the left, out of bounds all along the right. Scary tee shot for someone who hits a slice, because if you aim left and hit it straight, you're in the water. And if you aim straight and you hit it right, you're out of bounds. So it's a very, very uncomfortable tee shot for folks who slice the golf ball. So what we need to do when we get to a hole like this, where it's going to be a bit more course strategy focused and a little bit more knowing yourself focused, is where can we absolutely not go? So think about these two hazards here: water hazard and out of bounds. If you had to pick between the two, what are you choosing? I'm choosing the water if I have to choose between water and out of bounds, because I can drop the ball further up. Whereas if I hit this out of bounds, I'm re-teeing and taking my penalty stroke plus the distance. So I have the potential now for what's going to feel like a 2-stroke penalty. Whereas if I hit it in the water, let's say I aim it kind of right here and I kind of pull draw one and it goes in the water over here, I can now drop and hit my third from here in the fairway instead of all the way back in the tee box. So where's the trouble? And if there's trouble on both sides, what is the least worst scenario? So we need to know that. If there's no trouble on one side of the hole and you just have trouble on, let's just say this is all grass and you just have out of bounds here, okay, well, we know that we have all the room left and we can get a bit more generous towards the left with our line to compensate for what's over here. Something that you should ask yourself as well is, how much do I usually curve the ball with this particular club? If I hit one bound and I slice it, is it 100 yards right? Is it 30 yards right? Like, let's start to have an idea of what our dispersion pattern is and how wide it is. And if we know that, okay, from hazard to cart path over here, let's call that 60 yards. If you know that your dispersion is 80 yards, well, we're going to be bringing a lot of stuff into play. If you know your dispersion is 50 yards, all right, well, maybe you can afford to just aim a driver and slice it and it's fine. Or you can pull it and it's going to be fine if you know that your dispersion is going to allow you to keep it in play. But if you don't know that it's going to be able to keep you in play, then maybe we need to look at choosing a different club. I'm a big fan of hitting driver as many times as you can in a round of golf, because statistically speaking, golf is easier the shorter distance you have into the hole. Your bad chip shot, because you drove it next to the green, probably still going to end up in a better spot than your bad 7-iron from back in the fairway because you hit a 7-iron off the tee also. So getting the golf ball down there as far as we can is a big priority. A little bit beyond the scope of what we're talking about right now. What we need to do is when we look at kind of dispersion and the curve and the trouble that's out there, do we need to hit this club right now off the tee? This one's a par 5 here, can I hit a fairway wood or a hybrid or an iron off the tee? I'll be able to 10 out of 10 times hit it in play. And then from there, I can advance something down the fairway and then on the green in regulation, have a putt for birdie, maybe make a birdie or par. So do I need to hit that club? That's what we need to ask ourselves when we're choosing our start lines and aim lines. And then where should I aim? It says where should I aim? Based off of all that stuff we just chose, we need to then pick a specific target that we're going to aim towards. So, let's continue using 18 at Pebble as an example, based off of your shot shape, how much it curves, what club you're hitting. Let's say we're going to aim it right at the base of this tree, and that way we're going to hit it. And if we pull it a little, we're still in the fairway. And if we hang out right a little bit, we're still in play. So we need to choose a specific target, nothing general. I'm not going to hit it kind of at the left side of the fairway. No, we're choosing something specific. I'm hitting it at the left branch of this tree. I'm hitting it at the right corner of the chimney on the house or clubhouse behind the green. We're choosing very specific lines. I know a lot of this conversation right now is about driver. This also applies to approach shots and irons if you're having the same issue with approach shots and irons. So we need to choose a very, very specific target. We need to know how much it's going to potentially curve. We need to aim it appropriately based off of that. We need to see the results then after we execute that shot. So how are we actually going to then fix this slice? We know what causes the different kinds of slices. How can we actually fix this? So step one is to identify what kind of slicer are you. Are you pulling it and then it's slicing, or are you starting it right and then it's slicing? That's going to give us some key insights on your swing path. If you're pulling it and then it's slicing, your path is to the left. And if you're pushing it and then it's slicing, your path is to the right. From there, we also want to identify what ball position is going to allow for a relatively neutral face angle and swing path. So if you can get on a TrackMan simulator to find that out, awesome. If not, what you need to do is when you're on the range practicing, you need to play around with ball position with different clubs and see if I have the ball in the middle of my stance with the driver, how much does it curve? I'm not so concerned with, is it slicing a ton or is it hooking a ton? I'm more concerned with how much curve are we getting? So if we know that we move the ball all the way up towards our left foot and we're getting about 50 yards of left to right curve, okay, well, now if we move that ball more to the middle of our stance, does it still curve right? And if so, how much right is it curving? It's probably starting a little bit more right, but is it curving 50 yards or are we now at 30 yards? So as you can see, having these numbers on TrackMan can really help, or on some kind of simulator can really help. So once we've identified things like what type of slicer we are, we found, okay, if I move the ball up or back in my stance, it gives me a little bit more neutral face and path. We should also be aware and check our grip. How are we actually holding the club? Are we holding it consistently every single time? A great way to find out if you are holding the club in a way that's opening or closing the face is if you were to grip the club in your left hand, your non-dominant swing hand, right? So if I'm a right-handed golfer, my left hand's on the top of my grip. So if I hold that club in my left hand and I look straight out in front of me and I look to see what the face angle looks like, is the face open or closed? And this is presuming I'm gripping the club the same way I normally would to hit a golf shot, and then I'm just taking my right hand off and looking where it is. That's going to give you a really, really good indicator of, is your face open, square, closed? We want that face square, or depending on if we're trying to shape a shot a particular way that our eye likes to see, maybe that face is slightly open or slightly closed, and that's going to be relative to path. As someone who slices the golf ball, when you do that, you're probably going to find that the face is open. What you're going to want to do then, if you're finding that the face is not where you want it to be, is you're going to need to reposition the club. So use your right hand, kind of twist and reposition the club, reestablish grip pressure with your left hand, and then hold it out in front of you. And you should see more of what you're looking for. From there, you can put your right hand on the club, don't move the left hand, set it down, and see what that looks like. Switching the way you're holding the club or moving your hand around how you're holding the club, it's going to feel really weird. But what's going to happen is we're now going to be aware of how we can control that face angle, and doing so using our left hand. So if we can hold that club with the face angle we want in our left hand consistently, we've just figured out how to control our face angle. So try that out. Make sure you know what your face angle is and how you can use your grip to influence your face angle. From there, so we've identified what kind of slicer you are. We've adjusted our ball position and our grip in a way that now should promote a far less sliced golf ball. So we may still hit a fade. We might find out that we start to hit a draw. Whatever it is, it should remove that huge left to right ball flight, and it should tone it down a bit. And because of all this information we've just gathered, we can now choose appropriate drills to fix your slice. It does us no good to Google how do I fix my slice and find some drills or find a new training aid or find this, that, or the other that could help you. You need to find out what you're doing and then choosing your drills and then applying them in games like Driver 15, which is going to be an accuracy game to help improve your awareness of how far offline you're hitting your driver. So that'll be it for today's summary of how to fix your slice. So we know that there's a lot of factors that can lead to that. We need to identify those before we start choosing our drills and games that we use to fix that. And then once we've identified why we're doing that, then we can start applying drills and games to fix that. Hope that helps you out. Hope you can play better golf with that. Have a good one.